while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
You should not listen to men's rights advocates if you want to know what they have to say.
All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to HoneyBadgerRadio once again. This is Fireside Chat number 75. And I am joined by my very special guest, Ishiro. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Ishiro. Is that a screen name or is that like your actual name? If you don't mind me asking.
It's my middle name.
It's your middle name.
There's
Okay.
a kind of a long, involved story behind it, but mainly it comes down to the name that I started writing under, which I should have realized this many years ago, is way, 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 way too close to Jack Finney. And when you're trying to get your name out there, it would help if your name isn't only a few letters off from one of the most famous sci-fi writers of the 20th century. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it helps you make a name for yourself a lot easier. So, we
Helps
are
with Google searches.
Yeah, and that's exactly. Yeah. So we're going to be talking with Mr. Ishiro, or I'll just say Oshiro, today about a couple of different subjects. Before we do get started, you might notice that he's not using a camera. That's totally okay. Sometimes it's, good idea to protect people's identity, or they don't have a camera. So don't sweat it, guys. We'll still keep things interesting. You also might hear strange background noise. That is just a fire, because this is a fireside chat. So nothing is on fire. It just sounds like there is. I'm going to quickly look at the chat. So before we get into this, I saw that someone asked right off the bat, does this channel read super chats? Yes, absolutely we do. Please send your super chats through if you're on the either Honey Badger Radio main channel or the Badger live streams channel. We will be leaving these both live after this is over. I will read super chats every so often when we find breaks in the conversation, or if someone has a specific question for either us or our guest. So please put the chats through and I will read them, and I appreciate you guys actually taking the time and being so generous as to do that, assuming you do. So some of you might be wondering who is this guest and why is he here? So that's what the first thing we're going to try and learn about Ishiro. So Ishiro, so we had these school shootings going on recently. There was one in Florida specifically. And naturally, whenever there's a school shooting, there becomes a discussion around how we can prevent them in the future, or speculation around what the causes are. And everyone knows the mainstream media, most of the time, gets it wrong. They, will basically talk about it's a problem with guns, or it's a problem with masculinity itself. But you have experience with a school shooting. So if you don't mind, would you tell me your story with regards to that?
All right. Well, when this happened, every time one of these shooting events happens, it really hits home for me. And frankly, I take a lot of the press personally, and maybe I shouldn't. But when I was a teenager, 2 weeks after graduating, a nut with a gun snapped. I was with a couple of friends. We were on our way to Denny's for his birthday to get him his free birthday meal, because I'm old enough that they still did that back then. Mm-hmm. And this guy cracked. His excuse later on was that he had had a very bad week and he just wanted to take it out on someone. I mean, completely unapologetic. He chased us down in his vehicle, ran us off the road, and started shooting. He got out of his vehicle to shoot. We're driving off. He pulls off 3 to 4 shots, and one hits the rear view mirror, one hits a tire, and one hits the trunk, goes through, and hits me. I nearly died. When they wheeled me into surgery, it was really, really close, how close to death I was. And so in that regard alone, every time the press kind of goes on this tirade of blaming maleness itself for a shooting, I can't help but on some degree take that as, oh, well, it's absolutely my fault for existing that I got shot. Not that it was a nut with a gun, not that the gun was in his hands because of a complete failure of law enforcement. The guy that shot me had been a volunteer deputy who had been issued a weapon by the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department, who had absolutely no business bringing this guy on board. The ammunition he was carrying were armor-piercing rounds, which had been issued to him by the armory, which should have never left the armory when he was off duty. The weapon he had should have never been in his vehicle off duty.
Yeah.
No gun law would have stopped this.
Right. Can I ask you a couple questions about this event?
Sure.
So, how long ago was this? Oh, this was way back in, like, how far back are we looking?
The 90s, the early
Okay,
part of the 90s.
All right.
After the show, I can email you a article from the local paper that has all the details.
I have I actually have it. You sent it to me on Twitter, right?
Okay.
Deputy held after shooting. And here, you know what I'll do is I will drop this in here so people can see it. Are we still talking? Oh no, we may not be. Shit. I have to call him back. I fucked up, guys. Hold on a second, Ichiro. I will get you. Let me just call him back on Google Hangouts. I messed up, y'all. That was really stupid. All right, I'm gonna go into the link here. Turn that off.
I have no idea.
All right, here we go. I'm back. Sorry.
All right.
It was a mistake. I made a mistake. So that's okay. I'm back. So so I have the article here, and it reads: Deputy held after shooting. An off-duty San Bernardino Sheriff's reservist from Moreno Valley was arrested after a passenger in a car was shot in the back. This doesn't. It's So 1993. I was like, I was about 19 at that time.
Oh, we're about the same age then. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So this is how long ago it was. Now let me ask you a couple of other questions. So this was in Moreno Valley?
Actually, it occurred in Riverside City.
Riverside City, which is
within Riverside County.
Okay.
And it's right next to Moreno Valley.
All right. Okay. And did you know this person? Did this person know you? You had no connection with this person. Complete stranger. Randomly came after you guys because you just happened to be there? Is that basically what it seems like? Wrong place, wrong time?
Yeah,
kind of thing?
essentially, he claims that we were driving erratically and decided to, in his vehicle, a Jeep Cherokee, to chase us down. Chased us for probably a good 15, 20 minutes. It's been a long, long time. And eventually ran us off the road and jumped out, pulled out a 9mm and started shooting.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So it was just like random act of violence.
Right.
And let me ask you another question. This is one that the press probably should have thought about before they start speculating about the toxicity of men. Who were the people that came to get you when you had gotten shot? Like, what happened after that? Did your friends call the police? Did they go to someone else? Did you do it?
It's a pretty intense story. This was, I don't know, on the one end, I've written extensively about my experience with post-traumatic stress that came later. At the time, it was bizarre. I freaked out within a split second. I had this kind of total awareness that everything I am, everything I knew, everybody I loved, everything I could ever be was probably going to be gone within minutes. And that is a realization and a terror that changes your perception for life. And I don't know how long, but I know I freaked out and I started screaming, "Oh my God, I'm going to die!" And then I don't know. It was suddenly just everything stopped, and I was hyper aware, and I didn't want to die. We were driving, and everyone in the car was panicked, and it just occurred to me, we're not going to get to the hospital. There is no way the driver is going to be able to get us to the hospital. And so I screamed at them to take us to a friend's house that was in the nearby neighborhood we were in.
Right.
We went over there, we broke into his house, and my friend calls 911, and he was actually so shook up that I ended up having to pull the phone away and tell them, I'm here, this is where I am, this is what happened, please come and get me. And that cool head didn't last forever, but it lasted long enough to keep me alive. Let me tell you, when they were wheeling me into surgery, I was not, I was in a different type of terror after that. Much more of a cold, closed in, am I going to wake up from this kind of terror? But that act alone is why I probably survived, is that we didn't try to drive to the hospital. We stopped, called paramedics, who came, picked us up, and drove us to the hospital.
And how many of all those people that were essentially involved in, finding you, getting you, saving your life, how many of those people were men?
All of them.
Interesting that, isn't it?
Yes, every single one of them was a man. But the only person that wasn't was the 911 operator. And then I would say maybe half of the... No, that's not fair. Most of the nurses were female.
Sure.
At the hospital.
Sure.
And they were wonderful. But the whole process of the police, the paramedics, the surgeon actually was a Vietnam vet, and I'm extremely lucky in that regard. He said he hadn't seen anything that bad since Vietnam, and that he told me he didn't think, if he hadn't had so much experience pulling out those types of bullets, he thinks I probably would have ended up with peeing into a bag the rest of my life. Instead, I only lost a foot of intestine, which is a lot better than peeing in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank goodness for that. I mean, it's you sound really, really lucky. So I got to read we have one super chat. I'm going to go ahead and read it while we have a lull here. Perseus Gold gave us $5 Canadian and says, there is no legal solution to a corrupt legal system. It served the corrupt purpose of lobbies. Violence, the last resort, is always the final solution. All right. Well, thank you for the $5, Perseus Gold, in Canadian. So, yeah, thanks for that. So this is because this was such a traumatic part of your life, and I guess it's a pretty big deal that you went through.
It's defined my entire life. It's led the entire course of it. I would probably be a different person today otherwise. Yeah.
So it's interesting because as a victim of school shooting, or maybe a random shooting or attempted mass murder, I think that it could be very easy for you to take the takeaway to be, more of an anti-male stance. So why do you still sort of, try to sympathize or empathize with that instead of simply railing against it? I think that many people who are in a tragedy like that their first thought would be to find somebody to blame and something to destroy, and maybe, do far more damage to more people that are undeserving, as opposed to focusing on what the actual, causes could be. So why would you go with this opinion, even though you were the victim of a shooting itself?
It was the individual actions of one person. There's the system that allowed this guy to have a gun because they didn't do their jobs, but ultimately the act was committed by one person. And to believe, my politics are extremely Jeffersonian, and if you're going to believe in the individual, you have to believe in individual actions. Why would I blame anyone else? In fact, my whole experience, and I don't know, maybe I'm just wired differently, but when I came out of surgery, apparently in my drugged up state, the first thing I wanted to do apparently was thank the surgeon. And then thank the people in the trauma ward. I honestly don't remember doing it, but that they had said that's what I did, was just thank everyone that I was alive. And as far as the blaming masculinity, I honestly don't see the connection. I really don't. I mean, sure, we can talk about male violence rates being higher, but in my own video, I demonstrate that you could make the same argument in reverse for acts of charity.
Absolutely.
I forget the name of the man who cured polio. He could have been a mercantilist about it and tried to make money. He gave that away to the world because he was tired of seeing children die. Mm-hmm. He didn't make a cent. And I mean, there are countless men through history that have done things like this. So I really don't see it. The thought was never there. It never was there to begin with.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it's just one of those things that I think many people would do. It sounds exploitative and dirty, but I think that it's common. So maybe you are a bit wired a bit differently. I mean, I'm like that too. When something happens. And I live in, like, for example, I live here in the west side of Chicago. It used to be back in the 90s and 80s. It was an extremely, extremely tough neighborhood run by the Latin Kings and the Gangster Disciples, basically these two massive gangs. And there was a lot of problems, with criminality and stuff. But I never... Even though I had my share of lumps that I took and I had to run from gangs and avoid them and stuff, I never saw it in a tribalist sense. I never thought I need to blame, the race of the people involved or saw it as a man problem. I just thought it was an individual problem because I was able to avoid the stuff, getting involved myself pretty easily. And this is before I put it all together that what I think the source of this is, or at least one of the largest factors. So,
well, the gang thing, that's a culture problem, and I feel that, again, that was something I addressed well in my video, was that that youthful energy can be a power for enormous good, but left unfocused, what is it? It's like fire, right?
Yeah.
Giver of life, but it can also run out of control.
Yeah.
And we now live in an era where, these sorts... You could actually look at technological achievements in the same way. There was a time when we looked upon our technological achievements as these wonderful things that would benefit us, but we also knew there was a responsibility to them. The splitting of the atom wasn't horrific. It was going to be the thing that powered the world. And then our parents' generation, the boomers, rejected that responsibility and just, atom splitting's bad. Mm-hmm. And look where we are now. You go down the list, the hard environmentalists, all of it is just, let's ban it. Oh, well, that's bad. That's bad. No, it never comes back to let's be responsible human beings. Let's be adults and use it correctly.
Yeah.
I mean... what was the joke was, what next? They're going to try and start banning cars or trucks because Muslims keep running people over with them. And then one of those nations, Sweden, started talking about banning trucks. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. Nobody can ever be expected to actually be responsible anymore. Everybody's a child.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, exactly. And Well, it's they all want to start the story in the middle, right? They want to start
Yeah.
the story with guns. They want to start it with toxic masculinity. They want to blame rock and roll. They want to blame video games. They want to blame.
Well, I am convinced that the toxic masculinity is kind of this unholy alliance of feminism and politicians running out of excuses to blame things on.
Mm-hmm. Actually, since we're on that, why don't we listen to your video?
Okay.
So I have it queued up here. You're just going to get the audio part of it, but the people watching will get the video
Please go see the
part
video
as well.
version.
Well, I'm going to play the video version, so the people watching us now will see the video, but you're only going to hear it. But I mean, you've heard this before, so okay. So guys, we're going to play the whole video in its entirety. So I'm going to mute myself for about 7 minutes, but you should watch this. This is essentially a video version of a letter that you wrote to. Was it written to Jordan Peterson, or you just wrote it in general and Peterson?
No,
sort of
I
picked it up?
actually. These are things that have been burning in me for a very, very long time. And with this latest school shooting and just the flood of ugliness and blaming of teenage boys and young men, that was the thing that finally brought these words forward. All these words that had been in me for years finally found their form, and I wrote them and I put them up on my blog, and then Jordan Peterson shared that.
Ah. So he just came across your work then. It wasn't like people were, he just happened to come across it, liked what he saw, and shared it.
I'm guessing. I mean, I did tweet it in his direction, but it didn't seem... I can only hope he saw my tweet. I have no idea how it got in front of him. I'm just glad it did. And then after that, a lot of people started asking for a video version, so I made a video.
Right. Yeah, it's a good video too. So we're going to go ahead and check it out. All right. I am going to mute, and we're just going to go ahead and listen. So here we go.
A Letter to the Boys and Young Men of America by J. Ishiro Finney. The bodies aren't even cold yet, and already you are being blamed. You. Yes, all of you. The boys and young men who will grow up to be one half of America's future. Once again, due to society's failure to raise you, to teach you, to properly guide you on your path to manhood, your mere existence is being held responsible for 17 more deaths, this time in Florida, and once again at a school. The headlines over the last few days say it all.
Guns don't kill people. Men and boys kill people, experts say.
USA Today.
Michael Ian Black reacts to the Florida shooting. Boys are broken.
New York Daily News.
How gun violence and toxic masculinity are linked in 8 tweets.
The Huffington Post.
Toxic white masculinity, the killer that haunts American life.
Salon.
Toxic masculinity is killing us.
The Boston Globe.
Toxic masculinity is killing us.
Harper's Bazaar.
Don't blame mental illness for mass shootings. Blame men.
Politico. In the handful of decades I've been alive, I've seen America shift from a culture of responsibility to one of blame. We don't solve problems anymore. We cry, we pray for, we seek to find closure, and then finally, we slaughter a sacrificial lamb for our sins. When I was young and Columbine happened, that lamb was Marilyn Manson and video games. Before that, it was Twisted Sister and D&D. These days, though, as body counts continue to rise and excuses continue to vanish, the lamb America has chosen to sacrifice is you. Rather than take responsibility for the seeds we've sown, the culture we've built, and the disaster you've been left to inherit, we as a nation have chosen to lie to ourselves, to listen and believe those who claim the answer is simple.
Boys are simply born bad.
As an aging Gen Xer watching this tragedy unfold, I can't help but look back to my own youth and realize we were the dry run for this crisis of masculinity, as the media likes to call it. In my time, I've watched fathers pushed out of the home, separated from their children, and their roles in society devalued and debased. Like you, I was taught male behavior was bad behavior, that I was broken and needed to be fixed, that drugs, therapy, mass socialization were required to save me from my most innate instincts. The need to compete, the drive to create, the urge to protect, and of course, the desire for female affection. Like you, I was told these instincts were not only wrong, but dangerous. That due to my original sin of being born a boy, I was destined to mature into a lustful monster and an oppressor of women. All of this was burned into me before I even reached college, where campus policy actually assumed all men to be rapists waiting to happen. It isn't hard to see how we got here, to an age when America is more than willing to sacrifice its boys. To quote Fight Club, we're a generation of men raised by women, and the women who raised my generation had a saying.
All men are pigs.
But there's another saying those very same women were enamored with, and that is, the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. So here we are, coming close to 50 years of single mothers raising their boys as if they were animals. That's 2 generations of young men raised to believe they're broken, immoral, dangerous, that their natural state, if left unchecked and unmedicated, is a sexual ticking time bomb of rape and abuse. That is half a century of academia peddling a grim version of history that holds your gender personally responsible for all the wrongs to have ever happened in the world. That is a press that is right now blaming you for every school shooting that has ever occurred. After all this, how could there not be a crisis of masculinity? So to the boys and young men of America, please hear me when I say, it isn't you who should be apologizing for the state of our world today. This mess was set in motion long before you were ever born. You are not bad. You are not broken. You are not evil or a sexual abuser in waiting. You are boys who were robbed of your right to be men. All your life, you've been told to act, think, and behave like women, to suppress your passions, your pride, your need to compete and drive to achieve. Now society is crumbling around us. Feminizing boys did not make better men. It's resulted in broken homes and shattered families and record suicide rates. It's destroying any notion of a healthy partnership between men and women. What we are seeing now is a total collapse between the genders. Boys, we don't need you to be like women. The world has plenty of women already. What the world needs now, more than ever, is for you to grow up, to grow strong, and to do what men do. For it was men's strength and determination that tamed the wilderness, built civilization, and has kept the world fed despite all predictions that we would die starving before the year 2000. It is men's curiosity that led us to explore the oceans, to conquer space, and to peer into the tiniest of microcosms of the human body. It was men who built the cities we inhabit, the luxuries we enjoy, the medicines that keep us alive. Men built the roads, the plumbing, the electrical grid, the phone in your hand, and the internet it's connected to. Men have always been innovators, explorers, defenders, and leaders. But most importantly, men have always been fathers. So to the boys and young men of America, please hear this and take every word to heart. The world needs you. You have nothing to apologize for. That's the message. Hello?
Sorry, I'm right here. I forgot that I had muted myself. So I thought I was just saying it's a good video, and I can see why Jordan Peterson shared it. So I wanted to give the chat a moment to absorb what they saw. And guys, let me know if you have any thoughts. You don't have to make it a super chat. I will. I'm looking at it right now. I just want to see if there's any questions people have or any impressions from this. I'll give it a little bit of time. Excalibur Blade says, great video. Michael Keller says, the Doge isn't himself today. No, I'm okay. I may have slipped up a little bit there, but I'm all right. Let me see. I'm just gonna give people some time to give us some thoughts on this. I'm gonna look and see if there's any other super chats. I only just got the one so far. So, but yeah, it's actually really well made and well edited too. So this is something that you had on your mind. Do you want to make more videos or do anything else, or is this just something that you wanted to do right here, right now?
I have actually made other videos, but I felt that this one really needed to be under my own name. I've got another channel, and anyone looking at the avatar here may actually know who it is. All right. But they're primarily satirical and funny videos. Every once in a while, I'll toss out a very serious one. But the response to this was so strong that, yeah, I will make more videos if something is burning in me that strong that needs to get out. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
I mean, the only downside to it is, I am a professional writer, which does take up a lot of my time. And that video was nonstop work for 6 days straight to get it done, because I wanted it to be quality. It had to encapsulate what I was saying, and it had to get out on time before this went cold. And fortunately, it didn't go cold, because the press not only decided they wanted to keep blaming teenage boys, they found themselves a nice teenage boy to be their puppet to further their political agenda, because there is no low that they won't sink to.
Absolutely. Okay, so I got some commentary. Zeno Sayan says, question, acknowledging the problem is the first step. That doesn't really sound like a question, but yes, I agree. Acknowledging there is a problem is the first step. Identifying the problem specifically, I think, is the second step. So right now, we acknowledge that there is a problem. I think most people acknowledge the problem with school shootings, even though violent crime is down overall, to the lowest it's been in a while. This is a specific rise in school shootings, which I think is a problem. However, the media and academics and celebrities and pundits, I think they mostly get it wrong in terms of identifying the specific cause of the problem. Their belief is it's guns, it's masculinity, it's patriarchy, it's whatever, right?
Whatever suits them and whatever is the hip cause of the moment.
Yeah, whatever it is they want to control, ultimately. Whatever it is they want to blame.
When it was hip to side with Robert Mugabe back in the 70s, they all were cool with him, and
yeah,
we saw where that led.
Yeah, and the thing is, here's the reason why they won't go and actually try to get to the root cause, because what it ultimately means is blaming women on some level, not as a group, but individual women will have to take some of the responsibility for these tragedies. And I know that doesn't. I don't know if that makes sense. I'm going to
take it a step further.
Okay,
I'm actually going to go further than that and make it a little bit more equitable. It is a combination of women refusing to take the responsibility of being adults, and the men of our past not being adult enough to call them on it and to hold them to that standard.
Well, I don't disagree with that, but I think that the reason why the media and academics and all the other people who talk about this stuff, the reason why they won't go that far is because the blaming men part, they don't have a problem doing that.
Oh no, of course not.
In any way. It's when it comes to actually holding women accountable, that's where the sting is at. So if they dig and I say the problem is fathers are not in the home, Okay, if I say that's basically it. Like when you look at the number of kids that lose it and they go and shoot up a school, the majority of them don't have dads. I mean, like the overwhelming majority of them. And then on top of that, you look at all the things that led to it. Okay, so there's no father around. Now, sure, people will say, well, that's the fault of the father. He should have been there. Grant, I'll give you that. However, the mother chose to have sex with this man to make these babies. She should have known what kind of man he was. Maybe she didn't have the tools. Maybe her father wasn't there. There's a cycle that's going on. We have to talk about it honestly, though. That means that we have to be able to look at not only why is the father not there, which could be for a number of reasons, but also why, what part did the mom have to play in like making this situation? And so if we look at it that way.
The line that we keep hearing over and over again, I think it goes back to Margaret Sanger, is the women need full control of their bodies in order to be free. Well, they got that freedom, but they didn't actually step up to the responsibility of that freedom, because you can see who they're giving their bodies over to, whose babies they're carrying.
Yeah, exactly. You can't have, there's all this stuff about rights and liberty and all that, but there's no responsibility that comes with it. So you're gonna get a bunch of people that are gonna misbehave in terms of, because they're given liberty to do so. Free reign to act however you want. No one should judge you for who you sleep with, how many people. I mean, like Maury Povich has a career because of irresponsible women.
Yeah,
this is like, I mean, like there was one woman that was on that show. She's been on there 17 times to try to find out who the father of her child is. 17 times for a paternity test. How is this even possible? I know that's a crazy circumstance, but go ahead.
Let's go a step further, okay? We're constantly talking about how guns are so damn destructive. They're so dangerous. Well, women like that, the woman on the Maury Povich show showed that a loaded uterus is pretty damn dangerous to an entire society too. Let's see some responsibility there.
Yeah, for sure. Zeno Sayin gave us another message, and he says, the second question is, how do we masculinize feminized boys? Well, I think that, I'll give my thoughts and I'll let you give yours, but I think that what we need to do is, we need to be able to honor, respect, and admire masculine traits in our sort of, cultural zeitgeist before we can even think about how we're going to remasculinize boys. I mean, look, I'm of the belief that boys and girls should be able to be who they are. Like, if they turn out to be more masculine women or more feminine men in some cases, I'm fine with that. I don't care. What I have a problem with is the people who want to socially engineer people to be the way they want. Because remember, they're not only affecting the masculine in men, but they're also affecting the masculine in women, which is, I mean, God, I don't, Alice and I have been juggling, thinking about this a bit, but there seems to be this idea that masculinity is equal to maturity, and I almost don't want to do that, because I think that it's actually kind of bad to see women that way. I think that women should also, being maturity should be something that both sexes have, and it's not a masculine trait per se. But
well, you've nailed it, because throughout history, masculine has been responsible, and that is why that was the tool, which was always, if we let women run free, they're not going to be responsible. That men are responsible, women aren't. And then the feminists turned around and proved all the sexists right.
Yeah, right.
Good job, ladies.
So yeah, I mean, how do we masculinize, feminize boys? I say we need to change what we think of as masculine in our zeitgeist first. What do you think?
Well, first off, we need to make a few things clear. we don't have to necessarily worry about masculinizing boys. Yes, there is a large population of soy boys out there who will always be soy boys.
Well,
They'll
this, I mean,
always be what?
yeah, they're beyond
You don't like
saving
that
at
term?
this. They're beyond saving at this point. Like they
No,
just.
that's it. Yeah, they're not only are they beyond saving, that's what they've always been. The term sneaky fucker. You notice how all these soy boys turn out to be rapists and subway gropers, and it's that evolutionary imperative of I'm going to mimic the female so that I can get in there and get with the female. These guys are never going to change. That is who they've always been throughout history. And really, they have thrived in this environment, and they know it. Really, it's not so much feminized. It is the trying to feminize boys. It's failing. You're not. It's not feminized. It's the trying to feminize boys.
Yeah.
These boys are still masculine, and when unfocused, when they're not allowed to be masculine, when they have to bottle it up, when there is no way to focus that towards all the positive things that masculinity has achieved through history, that masculinity eventually pops. And you get a school shooter or you get street gangs. This is, that's unrestrained boys who never grew up. They didn't stop being masculine. They're still masculine. They've got all those drives to rebel.
Sure.
But imagine if you just actually gave those boys fathers to raise them right.
Or just
to
model their behavior after, basically.
They need men to lead them. They need men to raise them and guide them. We're seeing there is a longing for it. I mean, with Jordan Peterson, there are so many young men who are starting to see him as a father figure. And some of them are getting a little unhealthy with it, but can you blame them when there is such a void in their life that finally this one man steps up who isn't a wimp, who is brilliant, who is soft-spoken, but will not take shit, and will stand up in the face of all the authority and say, go fuck yourself in beautiful words. How could he not be idolized? We've been needing someone to step up and punch these assholes in the face for a long time. The more the better. We need men to start stepping up. And maybe, unfortunately, maybe we can't get them in the home, but we can put them elsewhere.
Yeah, but here's the challenge with that. How do we get men to step up? Because I agree that we need that, and I think that many people don't recognize the importance of men. Like if all men quit, we'd basically just fall into the Stone Age overnight. Okay, like if they just walked off the job and said, "Fuck this, I'm not doing this anymore." The challenge is, what incentive do men have to actually give a shit when the whole world is telling them that everything that is wrong with the world, every ill that we suffer, every time anyone gets sick or dies or whatever for any reason, we blame men as a whole. How do you get men to want to actually do anything to change the situation when they get nothing but blame and hatred from the most people? From what seems like the majority of the population, women and many men blame men. A lot of men, a lot of these sneaky soy boy types that want to rise up in the hierarchy. Sure.
Michael Ian Black.
Yeah, exactly. Michael Ian Black. Or many people who have access to large platforms that are treated as authorities on the subject blame men. So if you were a man and you were like, well, I'd like to help because I think men genuinely do want responsibility. They want to be able to do things to make the world better. They want to make a difference. They're willing to do it. But I don't think they will in a world that shits all over them as often as possible. So it's like, how do you square that circle, right?
No, that is a great question because that comes up to some of the responses I've gotten to my video. Some of the negative responses I've gotten were from very young, extremely angry MGTOWs or MGTOW, whatever, right? And some of them have accused me of basically telling them to go back to the plantation and suck it up. And they could not be more wrong. The message I have is grow strong and shape your future. And, we're in a culture like the one we are because other people, other men, let the wrong people steer our history and culture. And the MGTOWs who have said they're just going to sit back and watch the world burn. And I've had people use those exact words. I'm going to tell you up front, if you're not willing to get behind the wheel and drive, if you're going to let someone else steer your destiny, and you're going to be content and sit back and watch it all crash, you're going to be roadkill when history rolls all over you. No, I'm not telling you to put up with the people right now. I'm talking about guiding the young men for tomorrow.
Sure.
That we have got to step up, we have got to move forward, and we have got to shape where we're going with the next generation. We might be able to save some millennials, but frankly, I think a lot of them are a lost cause. They're going to have, once they hit that teenage phase, they're going to have to find you in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. But as you can see, there's a longing. There is a strong longing for a lot of boys to have that guidance.
Absolutely.
And we have to be there to deliver.
Yeah.
And the message is not to go back to the plantation and help these people who are shitting all over you. It's, you build, we're going to build our own with stripper poles and blackjack. We're going to, you lead the way. Stop letting them run the show. And you know what? Yeah, that may seem like insurmountable odds, but you know what? That's been us throughout history. We'd be dead by now as a species if we weren't willing to step up and fight insurmountable odds.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's another great thing. There is another great thing. And Peterson has shown this. Milo has shown this. A few others have done a good job of it. Rebelling can be fun. Mm-hmm. Oh, can it be fun to troll and raise hell and defuse and just, piss all over Hollywood and what they're doing to the rest of us. They are fun to lampoon. They're fun to laugh at. And the more they melt down, teenage boys love that. There are teachers right now that are very far left who are finding more and more boys, being turned on to the thinking of, I guess, what are they called? The intellectual dark web or whatever. I don't know what they're calling them now, but people that are waking up to what the Honey Badgers and Peterson and Milo are taking that back to their classes and watching their teachers melt down because they can't be proven wrong. And they love doing it. And there's a whole genre of teenagers posting this to the internet of watch me fuck with my teacher with facts.
Oh yeah. And
we can win this.
And teenagers that make they make comment. I've been noticing this, and this just as an aside. I've noticed that there have been YouTube channels that just put together like dank memes that are funny or funny little video clips, and most of them are just that. They're just funny little video clips that use, stuff from whatever the current meme is that's making these boys laugh. However, every so often there will be a funny meme of a Jordan Peterson clip or a feminist getting triggered or something like that, which tells me that the general opinion is shifting in that, they are able to see, and I would say that, work like the stuff that anti-feminists and MRAs and other people that essentially are moving in a parallel direction, the content they're making on the internet is reaching people who are seeing it, and it's influencing them, and it's basically just being incorporated into their sort of like regular belief system. They're seeing through the bullshit. However, that's great, but the challenge is that what we're really up against is not feminism. It's actually not feminism. What we're up against is gynocentrism, which is much more a much more difficult thing to fight because it's in your programming. Now, I'm not saying that we should eliminate it because I think that gynocentrism has its benefits. Obviously, it's useful to us. However, what we don't want is for it to become a parasitic, codependent situation, which I think is where things have been in the last 2 generations, where the male need for female approval was so high that it essentially was causing situations where people were doing very, very self-destructive and just generally destructive things to themselves, each other, and society. So we need to move away from that.
Well, I'm going to encourage a very, very old gynocentric point of view then. The gynocentric view that men should expect women to behave like ladies and behave like adults.
Mm-hmm.
And to look down on them if they don't.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the things that feminists are avoiding. That's why they call everything, they call it blank shaming. So you basically just put anything in front of shaming, and, you basically say it's something you shouldn't do because it's mean. Whether it's fat shaming or slut shaming or, there's all kinds of other shamings, I think. Seriously, like there's hygiene shaming. Like if they don't take baths, you're not allowed to shame them for that. There's, just all kinds of stuff. So we need to basically hold women accountable like we would anyone else. Treat them like a peer. Don't worry about whether or not they don't worry about whether or not they're gonna like you. Who gives a shit? Just have standards and abide by them. And I think that this is changing things. I think it is. I think people are starting to see that.
Well, she definitely is a little bit more. I don't even know what I'd call my politics anymore. I grew up in a very liberal family. My parents were hippies, and it's become a real problem as of late. Mm-hmm. But so at this point, I just consider my politics Jeffersonian. Mm-hmm. But my opinion is that when you've got the left, where they're essentially preachy, self-righteous, obnoxious, they glorify being obnoxious, glorify being rude, they're fat, they have blue armpit hair, they smell bad, they don't bathe, they go out of their way to uglify themselves, they go out of their way to make their art horrible, it's just, it's an actual war on beauty, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've got, on the other side, Lauren Southern.
Yeah.
Well, gee, which one is the young man going to want to impress?
I mean, if you're into dudes, but because as you know, Lauren Southern is a man. Oh yeah. So we have to respect.
I'll fuck that man.
we have to respect his pronouns. So yeah, I mean, but I see what you're saying, and I think that's there's definitely something to that.
Of that.
What was that?
We're seeing a lot of that, though. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing a lot of women stepping forward and saying, no, I want men. I want real men. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that.
And the other thing that we've got to do is we've got to be accepting of a wide range of masculinities. I mean, there's that whole back to the plantation mentality and that, MGTOWs freak out about. There's a large body of conservative traditionalist men who apparently that's what makes them happy. Yeah. Is being that patriarch who is the, workhorse that keeps everything alive. And if that's what he wants, fine. Look at a lot of Mormon families. It's very traditional in structure, but it works for them. Again, it's not something I would do, but we need to accept that. We've just got to we've got to expand out. We've got to see this kind of big tent approach. Realize we're up against the mass horde of soy boys, and actually, I think they're far worse than the feminists.
The soy boys?
Yeah.
Male feminists are really frustrating for me because they are still men, therefore I want to help them, but they are the most adamant opponents.
Well, they have no reason for you to. There is no point in helping them. There is no reason to help them. They thrive in this environment. If we again change the rules to a society where what's admired is achievement, what's admired is brilliance and outgoing and heroic. All these things, these defining, explorers, defenders, thinkers, doers. All the things that soy boys aren't, they're never going to be better at that than the more masculine men. Why would they want that world to change? They're the worm tongue of this situation.
Yeah. I don't know. I think they could. I mean, I know people who used to be that way. And they had some rude awakenings in marriages where there's a story I want to tell sometime on the show. I won't go into it here. But I have a friend who is one of those soy boy types, and he married a woman, and she took him to the cleaners. I mean,
Yeah.
it was brutal. And after that, he was just like, I think he had to go to fucking, Nepal or something and meditate under a waterfall to figure out what the fuck happened, because he just never saw it coming. And I helped him through that and spoke to him at length. And we had multiple conversations where I had to get him to understand that the situation he found himself in was one he could have avoided if he was able to see the signs. And the main one being, he did not love her. He loved, no, he didn't. He didn't.
Yeah.
He loved the way she made him feel about himself. And that is a trap that so many men fall into, especially when you see that so few men get as much compassion and love as the women do. Like, we give women unconditional value for doing nothing. They get it by default. They are valuable because they are female. Okay? The only way a woman loses her value is if she really stops giving a shit about her own health. If she stops caring and she puts on 500 pounds and she gets really sick and she gets old and her ovaries are no good, then we stop caring about them. But otherwise, if they're able to reproduce and they're like a 6 out of 10, we will love them unconditionally. As a society, we take care of them, we protect them, we hold them in high regard, we tell them they're badass just for existing, we hold them, we just love women. Our society loves women. Women love women and men love women. Okay? But when it comes to...
There, you can play on that.
What?
That was sarcasm, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. It's okay. But when it comes to men, they have to earn our respect. We don't call them men until they do something that we feel is worthy of calling them men. We have something called man up, and it has a definition, and it means the men have to do something to achieve that. There's no such thing as womaning up, because women are women by default. They just have to hit 18, otherwise they're just girls. But we still love them all the same. So if we don't have a standard by which a woman becomes a woman, where they have to show us something, right? Worthy of respect. They have to do something that we have to find respectful, that is worthy of respect, rather. Then they won't know what that is. They won't understand what it is that men have to do to essentially just be men. Just be men. Where women get it for just existing. So men are defined by what they do. Women are just women. And that's a problem. That's something that we have to acknowledge. And it's like, that's why you see all this stuff, like everything that feminism does is all about self-affirmation. It's about asking for kudos because they did something. Like if a girl fixes her own car or changes a tire by herself, then the feminists will come out and say, look at this badass fixing a tire as a woman. Most people who fix tires are men, but this woman is breaking gender stereotypes and crashing through that glass ceiling and all that. And it's like...
But all that does really is reinforce the fact that women are children. Oh,
yeah,
well, look,
absolutely.
This one woman can actually tie her shoes.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It does. But the problem
look at this one woman.
Is that
she actually
yeah, but
she can drive a race car. Wow.
Yeah, she drove on her own. But like... But the worst part is that most normie women, they eat that shit up. They get to say, I'm a badass because I cooked waffles this morning when I intended to make pancakes or something. Like, they get to claim excellence, when they don't know what the struggle is.
I'm really the wrong person to be talking to on this exact subject here. Really, in this regard, I would love to have... my partner in crime come on and have her answer those questions for you, because she has got to be the biggest misogynist I have ever met.
Really?
And oh yeah, she'll unload all sorts of fun feedback on exactly that thought, the whole idea of being valued just for women, the pat on the head, the ways that that has impacted her own life, how much it's wrecked her life, how much meeting me and me never taking 1 ounce of bullshit from her was the best thing that could have ever happened.
Is she there right now?
No, unfortunately she
okay.
isn't right now. I wish I could bring her on.
That's okay. I think
you bring her on sometime. You would enjoy it.
Okay. Well, the women that listen to our show, they know what I'm talking about. See, they know that what we're talking about. And sure, women can cook, but do you really want a blue ribbon for having done something that everyone does all the time? That's my point. And I know it's extremely condescending and it's belittling to women. It's really sad, but that's what feminists do. And it's not just feminists that do that. Like, it's just a general attitude that the majority of people have, where they're just like, oh, a woman did it? Well, that makes it extra special. It's like, well, why? I mean, unless she did something that would be amazing by normal human standards, why is it extra special when a woman does it?
Star Wars movie kind of disagrees that people are still agreeing with that because a woman did it.
What do you mean, the reviews?
No, just the fact that it's that last Star Wars film did so badly for having that exact message. Oh, look, she's a Jedi.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I didn't see the new Star Wars, but I know that it has a litany of problems. So it could have been, it could be a combination of things based on just them shitting all over the entire franchise to possibly make it to where they couldn't make another profitable movie with the word Star Wars on it ever again. But I don't know. I mean, I understand that the damage is deep.
Well, my point is that there's a growing attitude among people our age and younger who are just sick of that shit.
Yeah.
That the pat on the head, oh, hooray, look, a woman did something. It, not only is it growing tiresome and annoying, it's proving to be financially disastrous. And, if these companies eventually are just going to have to choose between, getting pleasing women by telling them what they want to hear and go out of business, or produce products that'll sell and stay in business, either they're going to turn themselves around or they're going to crash. And we can come on some other time and I can talk about how that's happening both in comics and in
we could certainly touch on that, actually. I think that we've droned on long enough about your about just the problems with men and women in the world and what we need to do, but just some things to think about. But go ahead.
Just as kind of a closer then for the video I made, it's a letter to teenage boys, or the teenage boys and young men of this country. You have everything to be proud of and nothing to apologize for. That's the first start. And then let's start acknowledging where these problems came from, because it isn't you.
Yeah. So I have a super chat that I want to read from Zeranx for $10 American. Thank you, Zeranx. He says, if one is a slave, they don't worry about food or shelter, as the master provides. If one is unshackled, they must worry about securing food and shelter. Freedom requires responsibility of self. This is obviously, I think it's a reference to what we did for women. So this is something I constantly hear. And I know that I said we're going to move on to comics, but I got to say this. Because I look at a lot of other people that make content critical of feminism, and they come from various political backgrounds. I think, like you, I don't know what I would call myself politically, because I'm like, look, I don't want to, it's not that I'm one of those people that says I don't like labels, man, but it's more like, I think, I don't know that the labels are very well defined in terms of what they really mean. So I would rather just tell you, ask me about an issue, I'll tell you where I stand on it. And then we'll see where it lands. I don't know. But I don't think that the stuff we work with in terms of like what we call someone's politics, I don't think that those things are very, they're really, really clumsy. I don't think they really work really well. So what I would say, though, is one of the things I noticed that when I watch other YouTubers that talk about feminism is I do it because I like to watch it, but also sometimes we like to do response videos to people that we like that talk about feminism, and then we try to like see where they did right and then where they may not have all the information. A lot of times this come out of people who are more conservative, because conservative tradcon types, they usually want to make the world better, or they're just really, really anti-feminist, but they don't often think about the male half of the equation. Still, they just think men, they need to play their role and get it done. But one of the things that they do a lot that annoys me is they credit feminism's accomplishments in the past, maybe as a way of extending an olive branch, or maybe because they're not fully informed, or maybe because they genuinely believed that these things were good. And I am of the opinion that feminism was never good, ever, from the beginning. Never. But
you are correct, sir.
I know I'm correct. But this is something that often, if I say it, people think that I'm against. This is like the fucking jank argument. I'm against women having the vote. And to add to that, I would say, this is the thing they always leave out. When women got the vote, they did not get responsibility to go with it. Before that, only people who owned property were allowed to get the vote. And at the time, it was one family, one household, one vote. So that means only one person votes. That was usually the father, and he was voting on behalf of everyone because he owned property, and they were voting on behalf of the household. When you think about it, it actually makes a lot of sense, because that means that they were financially invested because they owned property in the United States. They were invested in who they were voting for because it was going to affect them or impact them directly. When women got the vote, later on, they gave the vote to men, but only if they served in the military in the draft.
Yeah.
So they had to sign up for the draft to get a vote. So they were getting the vote at the cost of their life, potentially, while property owners were getting the vote because it was going to impact them. When they gave women the vote, none of that came with it. They were just getting the vote because of vagina. They didn't have to own property. They didn't have to join the military. There was nothing involved. So suddenly, the politicians had this enormous group of people that could vote as irresponsibly as they wanted because it wasn't going to impact them. There was no risk. They weren't going to lose them because they weren't going to go to war. So they could just appeal to them as a demographic. So if you were going to ask me, should women have gotten the vote? I would say not in the way they got it. They should have either been put in the draft from the beginning, or it should have been limited only to people who own property. Now, I mean, it's too late to go back and change that now because we've gone. Are you sure? Well,
I think we can change it.
I think we could, but I think that the problem is that how would we decide whether or not we move forward with that without making that a vote also? And if we do, how many people who don't own property are going to vote? And what do you do now that we have things like people that rent, people that I think you'd have to like go back and change. You'd have to change the rules.
I'm with Heinlein. Service means citizenship.
So you're basically saying let's do Starship Troopers style.
I really do believe that we need some sort of way that you actually earn the franchise. People take it for granted, and if you don't have any moral investment or sacrifice in this nation, you're only prone to want a handout.
Yeah.
Would you like to know more?
Exactly.
Well,
I mean, it sounds really draconian, but at this point, we have seen what egalitarianism has led to on this level, and it wasn't good. What was the line? I don't see the reason why a 17-year-old genius is less qualified to vote than a 50-year-old moron.
Mm-hmm.
It really does come down to more of a question of character.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what the service means citizenship was about, are you willing to die for your nation? Are you willing to give for your nation, sacrifice for your nation? Mm-hmm. And I granted that is an idea. I mean, it would definitely in practice have to be very different and be hammered out. But yeah, right now, just handing it out to anyone. I mean, at this point, we've got a political party that wants to hand over the franchise to anyone who can hop over a fence and run fast enough past the border patrol.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that if we're going to, because I mean we're just entertaining ideas, but I do think the way that we do this voting business, in terms of American citizens between men and women, we have to definitely, it has to change. No, rights should not come without responsibilities. That's just how I see it. Rights should come with responsibilities in some fashion for everyone across the board. So regardless of gender, race, etc. American citizens should take priority, and then we obviously they should be the ones voting only, and then beyond that we look at, okay, how do we decide who gets it based on responsibilities that come with, or an investment that comes with. Now, if it were up to me, I don't think there should be any conscription going on at all, because I think that is I would say that's not freedom, and so I'm a freedom guy. That's how I feel. But if somebody does choose to do it, there should be perks for that, because they are making a sacrifice. But I don't think that this should be given away for nothing.
Heinlein's book, but actually, citizens actually had more responsibilities and fewer rights than civilians.
No, but, I know. Yeah, there was. I didn't read the book, but I do know that was a different thing.
The movie's nothing like the book.
No. But okay, so I got another super chat I want to read here. Zarank says, if we went Starship Troopers path, women could have been granted the vote if they worked in medicine or were teachers. Okay, so I guess he's quoting from, maybe that's the book, because I didn't read the book, so I don't know. But yeah, that's possible.
No, that wasn't in the book, but he's just saying a possibility.
Oh, okay. Let me look and see if there's anything that I'm missing over here. Nope. I'm looking at both chats, so I'm trying to keep up, guys. All right. Well, anyway, let's move on from this topic.
Sure.
But what I'm saying is that, freedom should come with responsibility, and also the more, and this is one of the conflicts you have with female voters versus male voters, or just like the things that people value. The more freedom you give someone, the less security they're going to get. And so if people have a tendency to prefer one over the other, because these are mutually exclusive ideas. Like, the more freedom you get, the less security you're going to get. The more security you want, the more safe you want to feel, the less freedoms you're going to have. And one of the conflicts is that generally men vote for more freedoms, or they have more, they value freedom more, because they tend to be risk takers, and so they're okay with it. Women tend to value security more, because they have babies to protect, because they have it's like part of our evolutionary psychology to have those preferences.
In even more basic terms, a male-centric government or political mindset is more concerned about the production of resources, where a female mindset is more concerned about the distribution of resources, with no concern of where they come from. Sure, you do need a balance if you see that scenario, but right now, nobody seems to be paying any attention to how things are produced, just making sure that everybody gets something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that you're just adding on to what I'm saying, basically, but that's the idea. So, and yeah, well, women do spend a lot more, and I think men create more, at least right now. In terms of our money, women control 80% of the spending.
I would also say in terms of innovation, in terms of just contributions to civilization in general. Resources aren't necessarily just, food or electricity. I mean, resources in general are everything that allows this culture to function. So, I would say overall contribution throughout history, men have contributed more in the production of resources than women have, and no one had to tell them you needed permission. Nobody had to give them an example or a movie. They did it anyway.
Yeah.
They didn't need a Barbie doll that said, yes, you can be an astronaut to be an astronaut. Nobody.
So, yeah, exactly. So comics. Tell me a little bit about what you did or what you do in terms of that.
Well, I've been in comics for about a decade. I started at a very, very small publishing house called Bloodfire Studios. From there, I got a book signed on to Archaia Entertainment called Titanium Rain, which was then bought out by Boom Studios. I've done cover art and stuff like that for Image Books. I did a
So you're an
Catwoman
artist.
story for DC. What?
Yeah. So you're an artist, not like a writer or.
No. Actually, I did artwork for books that are on the Image label. I've written and drawn 2 of my own books, Utopiates and Titanium Rain. But then when I went indie, I started working with an artist named Patrick Vacavoy so that I could focus entirely on the writing, which is really more of what my skill is anyway. The art was always secondary, and that I had actually just pumped up my art skills, knowing that if I could draw my own comics, I could get my foot in the door that much easier. The last real job I did where I did any illustrating was the Catwoman story for at DC. Now my main focus is I did a book called World War Kaiju, and it's been followed up by this series called Casefile Arkham, which is a blending of 1940s hard-boiled detective noir set in H.P. Lovecraft's Arkham, which is kind of a haunted, cursed version of Boston.
Sure. They're like the Cthulhu stuff.
Yeah, and it is a true noir. It just happens to be in Lovecraft's mythos. It's been my most successful book. We are on volume 2. It's done so well. And if it continues there, we'll just keep making them. And book 2 just went for sale today in stores. So if you're curious, Casefile Arkham. It's on Amazon and possibly at your Borders.
I put a link to the website, your website, as well as your Gab and your Minds and your Twitter. And I also put link to the YouTube video, I believe, is down there. So you guys can watch the video that I just played a little while ago, that letter. So I understand, and I'm only going to talk about this for a little bit, maybe 10 minutes, because usually if these videos go for more than an hour and a half, you don't get as much people watching, like the retention goes down because it's too long. So
well, I can come on another time to talk about comics, but yeah.
Yeah, we could. I mean, maybe that's a good idea. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Because I was going to ask him about his experience with DC and like the whole like basically like
Bill. Want to bring me back for that?
Yeah, we could do that. But I was thinking like because with all the stuff going on in this is the thing, like why this is a big deal to me, because I know there's people who are like, well, why are we talking about comics? Or like, why do I bring up sometimes, because I'm an artist myself, but also there's cultural things like video games, hobbies, and tabletop gaming, and miniatures, and, all this other stuff that has historically been majority men, men interested in it, men and teenage boys that have been interested in it, and it's the stuff that draw them in. But suddenly this stuff becomes mainstream popular, and the same people who built the industry itself by spending their money, by spending all their time, by becoming a part of it and building it up themselves, they get pushed out. Not only pushed out, but they get pushed out and called the enemy of the thing that they created. And it's really, really annoying, because it's like, this is a place for men to get together, and you're telling them that they have no place here. Like, I just saw an article that I'm probably going to talk about tomorrow, where Comic-Con, a Comic-Con, not like I think it's Emerald City Comic-Con.
Yeah, I used to do that one. After my experience last year, I said, screw it, never again.
Yeah, well, Emerald City Comic-Con.
That's more stories I could tell.
Oh, okay, so Emerald City Comic-Con this year, apparently they're gonna have they always have like these parties. They're specifically
industry mixers. They all exclude white men.
Yes,
straight white men.
Yes,
there's one for minorities, one for women, and one for LGBTQ ABC 9-7.
Exactly. So they do all the industry mixers. None of them allow. There are none for white males. They're pushing out the people who built the industry. Because, I mean, even as a minority male, I know that it's white men that built the comics industry, mostly, and it's just really annoying and sad because the kinds of people that would build this are also the kinds of people that would say anybody is allowed in here. Come have fun with us in this hobby that we enjoy. And the people who come in, they say, yeah, I'll come in and enjoy your hobby now that it's cool and I'm not going to get bullied for it. However, now that I'm here, I think I'm going to criticize everything about it and ask that you change everything. And then I'm going to say, you know what? The problem is you. Maybe you guys shouldn't be here. It just pisses me off. So that's why
it's the repeated error. I saw this coming in 2012, believe it or not. I saw this happening that far back. So I had been there from the beginning, even before Gamergate and all that. I had seen it happening from the inside. Mm-hmm. And really, the repeated problem over and over again is we treat women like children. We built this community. We built, the comics industry, the gaming industry, sci-fi, the SFWA, you go down the list, all of it was built by men, primarily, frequented by men. The audience, the writers, the conventions, every bit of it was constructed by men. Mm-hmm. And when women said, hey, it's not fair, we're not in, they're like, oh, well, fine, sure, come on in. And the next thing, so, well, you know what, hey, wait. There are no female leaders in the groups. And you say, okay, sure, okay, well, sure, okay. Well, hey, I'm going with my friends in, and the next thing you know, you've been colonized, and they're kicking you out, and everything's changing, and suddenly it's unrecognizable. And the solution is very simple. Let them have it, let it crash, let it burn, let it go to complete garbage as we build a new one, which we are. And when the women come around again, make them earn it. Mm-hmm. Treat them like everyone else.
Absolutely.
And this is again why we need my wife on, because my God, you will get a rant and a half. She runs a company, a publishing company. So,
all right. Okay, so I got. I'm with you on that. Build your own thing, and now that we have the internet, that's actually very easy for many people to do.
It's happening.
And lots of people do.
The mainstream hasn't noticed it yet. Mm-hmm. It's happening. The new one's being built. No, it's just gone unnoticed because the press refuses to cover it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by the way, we always wanted to be in comics, but you bullied us. No. I was growing up in the 80s. Girls laughed at you for gaming in comics. Mm-hmm. Bullshit. Women didn't come around till there was money.
Well, yeah, maybe more than that. They didn't come around, and many men that also said, that's like gay shit. I don't want to do that. Yeah. They didn't come around until they saw that it was socially chic to do it. The
women who were involved did earn it.
Yes,
they were part of the club. They earned their spot at the table.
They took their lumps. Yes. Right. Absolutely. Okay, so Chris Stewart gives us 2 super chats. For a total of $15. Thank you, Chris, so much. He says, thoughts from a kinkster. I've noticed an increase in female submissives lately, and I think it may have something to do with the desire to reject feminism while still rejecting tradcon beliefs. Basically, fuck as only Satan would approve while having their precious womanly faces in a way feminism would hate. All right. Well, thank you for the super chat. What?
I'm not sure what I'm supposed to get from that.
Well, he's a kinkster, so it's BDSM stuff, I guess. Female submissives, there's an increase of them, and he thinks it has to do with them wanting to reject feminism and also tradcon beliefs. So, I don't know. I mean, it's something to think about, but
yeah, I would agree that's happening.
Yeah. I guess I'm not involved with that. So, but
you're from Chicago during the 80s and 90s. Were you at all? Did you have any brushes with the industrial music scene?
I did. In the 90s and 2000s, I used to go to the industrial clubs with my friend. Awesome. I had face piercings and my hair was dyed different colors. I went through my phase.
I still got the haircut.
Yeah, I see. I did have the hair just like that. I did. But yeah, I went through a phase. I went to the clubs, and I knew I dated girls like that that were into that stuff. I never got into that stuff, but I was happy to fuck them. So Zeranx gave us $2 and says, "Learn from Admiral Akbar, Chris. Seriously." I don't know who Chris is. Chris Stewart. Oh, okay. It's a trap. Got it.
So he's saying date women with dicks? Blair White? It's a trap?
Blair White got an operation, so she no longer has.
Oh, really?
She did, yeah.
I didn't know that. No, I had no idea.
She did the gender reassignment surgery.
Good for her.
All right, well, anyway, it's 3:27, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up, but maybe I will have you back on. Maybe, well, what I want to do, actually, is have a comic stream with a couple of other comics YouTubers that I've been talking to, like Micah Curtis, Mim Headroom, Diversity in Comics, and Aiden. Maybe we can all chit-chat about the comic scene again, see where things are at.
I'd love to.
All right, well, I see that people are trying to call you, so...
No, don't worry about it.
I read all the super chats, so I guess I'm going to go ahead and take off. Thank you so much for coming on the Fireside Chat. Thanks for joining me. And guys,
let me plug my book real quick.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Real quickly, Casefile Arkham Volume 1 and 2 are out right now, and it's a book where you're not going to get any political preaching. We've got a masculine hero who's a man, and no apologies for it. And we've got women who are beautiful, and plots that are interesting, and characters that develop, and there are actual risks involved, and you won't get any of the crap that you're seeing right now in Marvel or DC.
Mm-hmm. All right, there you go. Chris Stewart gave us another $5 just now, and he says, "I kind of feel embarrassed that I sent those supers. Really tired, and I have no filter. Don't worry about it, man. It's fine.
Chris Stewart's the one about fuck like Satan?
Yeah, the Kinkster guy.
I thought that was funny, dude. Don't worry about it.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm not. I don't judge, man. You know, the world is built of all types. Also, Egregious Charles said, "I thought she got facial feminization surgery, not bottom surgery." You might be right. If you are, then I apologize. And Blair White is still a trap. Then in that case, she may still have a dick. A sheenus, rather.
Chris, there's nothing wrong with a woman in latex. It looks great.
Yeah. I already said I don't have a problem with assuming they're hot. I don't have a problem.
Yeah,
with them,
assuming they're hot.
Some women should not be in latex, in fact.
Feminists.
Yeah, right, specifically.
SW women.
The funny thing is they tend to be into that shit. All right, well, anyway. So, yeah, if you go looking for kinksters, be careful. Because there are feminists.
All right. Well, hey, it was really good talking to you.
Yeah.
And again, I would love to come on to talk comics or industrial music. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, it was nice meeting you too, man. So you knew that Chicago had an industrial scene? Are you around here?
No.
Okay.
I'm in California, but
all right.
In the 80s and 90s, I was real deep into it. I worked at a record label called 21st Circuitry Records in San Francisco. They were small, but they had a few bands that people had heard of. I suppose the biggest being Hate Department and Covenant before they got picked up by Metropolis. Mm-hmm. And it's still kind of my thing now. It's kind of the music of my youth, and I still like electronic.
Oh yeah, me too. I've been getting into what's the new thing called? Vaporwave or whatever.
Oh,
I don't know if it's
I know what you mean. That's good.
Yeah, I like that. It's cool. It's soothing. Okay.
There's been a lot of good bands in the kind of like 80s era Skinny Puppy. That sound's kind of come back, and there's a number of them are really good.
Okay. All right. I'll be on the lookout for that. So, guys, thanks again for joining us on the Fireside Chat. Chris Stewart, I see your $2. I prefer lace. Yeah, lace is nice. We will talk to you guys next time. Otherwise, I'll see you later in the week for the HBR News Show. Have a good one.